Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is William Omamo, and I would like to welcome you to this inaugural episode of the Utopia of Hospitality series, organized by Boma's International Hospitality College, otherwise known as BIHC. BIHC is a world-class hospitality training institution based in Nairobi. We offer Swiss diplomas and certificates in culinary arts and hotel management. So we are very pleased to be the organizers and the moderators of this web series, which is basically to join in the conversation around the emerging trends following this pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and what are the likely outcomes, the likely changes, and the likely impacts affecting the industry. As you know and have you seen, globally there are conversations that are going on. Many of these conversations are taking place at government levels, international organizations, think tanks, and the general industry when we talk about tourism, hospitality, and travel. This conversation and this dialogue that we're having here is more to discuss and dialogue with the front liners, you and me, and those of us who are engaged directly in the hospitality and tourism industry. We are asking ourselves how this pandemic is affecting us. We are asking ourselves where we are going, and we want also to have an audience. We also want to have an opinion that we share with the greater industry. It's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to engage with industry players, important ones, men and women who are very much engaged, very much hands-on, men and women who have rolled up their sleeves to interact with the situation as we have it today. We are going to be having two panelists today as we carry on. The first of our panelists is a gentleman well known to many of us. He is Jimi Kariuki. Jimi is the managing director of the Sarova Hotel and Resort Group in Kenya. The head offices are based in Nairobi, and they are actually the biggest hotel chain locally. And Jimi oversees 9 units. These units range from business hotels to resorts and also safari lodges. Last week, however, we heard that Sarova Hotel was going to offload 2 of its lodges in the Taita Hills of Kenya. I think this may be a good place to welcome Jimi and to have a conversation. Maybe he can shed some light about where Sarova Hotel is going and why the business decision to let go of these 2 units. Jimi, welcome to the dialogue.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon to you and to the audience, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to engage with the listeners and with you. Bill, just to make a correction, Sarova Hotels does not own Salt Lake and Taita Hills. We entered into a management agreement with the owners of the 2 lodges in 2007. The contract was for an initial 7 years period with an option to extend for another 6 years. The contract comes to an end on 30th June 2020. And I must say, it's been a great 13 years of having these 2 lodges associated with our brand. So the owners of the 2 lodges who are also in the hospitality space in Kenya, they own 3 resorts in Diani in Mombasa. So they decided not to extend the management agreement and will manage the lodges themselves. So that's the correct position.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Maybe you can tell us, Jimmy, how have things been going since COVID-19 so far as Sarova Hotels? We've seen you get involved with relief initiatives. It was a great show of humanity to have offered the meals to the health workers. But overall, how have things gone for Sarova Hotels during this pandemic?
Well, Bill, these are indeed extraordinary times. I mean, who would have ever imagined that there would be a total global lockdown in response to this pandemic? But here we are, and the whole world is in lockdown in some form or other. In terms of business, we had a great January and February, so a good start to the year. Our forecast for the next quarter was looking very, very positive. We saw no signs of the impact of COVID until March. We saw a rapid decline in bookings, an increase in cancellations, to the point where many hotels closed or temporarily stopped operations, including ours. We do have some bookings for the rest of the year, but what we don't know is whether these bookings are going to stick, and if there'll be any additional bookings that will come in. So we're completely operating blind. So really, it's been tough since we stopped or temporarily suspended operations of our properties. But I must say that I must commend the leadership team and the staff in Sarova, and who I'm very proud of, because as soon as the pandemic, as soon as COVID was announced as a global pandemic by World Health Organization, the staff moved very, very quickly. They moved very quickly to protect each other. They moved very, very quickly to protect the guests. A lot of protocols were put in place. A lot of support measures were put in place. Liquid hand sanitizers were put in place in all areas. We developed protocols for training on enhanced cleaning protocols. We have regular briefings with the staff. A lot of cleaning, social distancing. So a lot of measures were put in place to support the staff, especially, and the guests. But we scaled down. We've closed 8 of our 9 properties. We've had to take some very, very tough decisions. In terms of cost cutting, given that we have 0 revenues. But I can tell you that the decisiveness and the quick move by the staff has really shown that Sarova, we are a family. We've come together very, very quickly to safeguard each other, to safeguard the business. But the reality, Bill, is that we're going to have to continue taking some tough decisions to keep our noses above water. Our priority really is around our staff. We want to do whatever we can to keep them safe, to keep them employed, to make sure that we're able to protect jobs and preserve wages and their benefits. But it's very tough times, and I think the tough times are still ahead of us.
Wow, yeah, tough times indeed. But where would you say is the greatest threat to recovery of the industry, and how can that be mitigated?
Bill, tourism directly accounts for about 10% of global GDP. If you bring in the supply chain, that's a lot higher. But right now, as things stand, tourism is suspended globally. And tourism is a major job creator. Millions of people's livelihoods depend on a healthy tourism sector. As I said, the tourism value chain goes well beyond just the industry itself, and supports sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, transport. So millions of jobs are currently at risk. And in particular, those in the most vulnerable groups, women, youth, self-employed, etc. As you know, Bill, tourism is a very people-driven industry. So it's very key that we put in place measures to support companies' liquidity so that we can protect those jobs. We need to preserve wages, we need to preserve benefits, not just in our industry, but also in the value chain. So really the industry needs a lot of support to survive in this crisis, and also for the recovery after the restart. We've seen some monetary and fiscal measures that were put in place by the government recently. But we need to see more aggressive monetary and fiscal support measures to support survival of the industry, and also to support its acceleration during the recovery. We've seen in the past, not just in Kenya but globally, that tourism has a proven track record of driving economic growth and supporting recovery in other sectors. So supporting the industry more aggressively will see a faster recovery of the economy. So really protecting jobs, protecting livelihoods, preserving wages, preserving benefits really is the biggest threat. And I think we need some very strong mitigation measures put in place so that as businesses we can stay open, because if we're closed, then we can't protect these jobs. Yeah. We can't protect people's livelihoods. So we need to stay open.
Yeah. Do you think that you have an advantage, or let me put it this way? The bigger chains, the Hiltons, the Sarovas, the Intercontinentals, do you have an advantage over the smaller units to recover more quickly? Or do you think that being large is going to strain you and it's going to retard your full recovery?
Well, as I said, these are really extraordinary times. What we're facing is unprecedented, it's unparalleled. This pandemic has had a devastating effect on the hospitality industry worldwide, and the effects have not been selective. So chain hotels, independent hotels, single unit hotels have been affected. And we'll continue and we'll have to continue to take hard decisions, just to survive. So Bill, really, it's difficult to predict the depth and duration of the downturn as a result of the pandemic. But what is certain is that the scale of financial and job losses in the industry will be big, and many hotels may not survive. So whereas it may sound logical that hotels with scale stand a better chance of recovery than the single unit hotels, and indeed this may be the case, there will be a lot of fatalities in the industry. So really, right now, everybody is in a similar situation, and we just pray that more hotels, more tourism businesses, more businesses overall, not just in tourism, in agriculture, in manufacturing, transportation, SMEs, the vulnerable groups, they stay afloat. But it's worth pointing out, Bill, that single unit hotels have an advantage of having lower operational costs than chain hotels. So if they can survive the downturn, they're probably in a better position to churn out profit a lot faster than the chain hotels.
That's interesting. People wouldn't see it in that way, but it's a good perspective.
Yes.
Every day, and I think every half day, especially if you're very active on social media, you see all of these new protocols coming, being introduced. Some are, outrageous, but many of them are very useful and very pertinent, given the situation that we're in. I'm wondering, these health protocols that have come into play, and that a lot of hotel operations, and let me say hospitality operations in general, seem to have to adapt to or to introduce. Do you think that these health protocols will have more influence on guest reservations, room reservations? Will it become a feature of a decision process with future hotel bookings?
Well, Bill, definitely we'll have to introduce new measures in the entire tourism and travel industry, not just in hospitality. Just to ensure the health and safety of employees and of travelers. It'll be important, and the whole reason behind this is to make sure that, we rebuild trust and confidence with employees and with travelers. And I must say, once again, that hotels move very swiftly to protect employees and to protect guests when the virus was declared a pandemic. So a lot of measures were put in place. But I also want to really emphasize that classified hotels have always maintained a very high standard of hygiene and sanitation, even before COVID. So a lot of the measures that we are going to put in place will be enhancing in these areas Of course, there are going to be new measures. We'll have to have PPEs available at the front desk, for clients, any guests who want to use the PPEs. We're going to have to do temperature checks as guests enter the hotel. So there's going to be many, many new areas that we'll have to introduce. But a lot of these other areas will be very much around enhancing the safety, the health and sanitation measures. But Bill, our goal will continue to be to ensure a safe experience for both our employees and for our guests. We want our employees to feel safe at work so that they can focus their energies on enjoying their work, and in so doing, keeping our guests happy. We want our guests to feel safe and to have a memorable experience with us, a memorable stay with us, whatever the purpose of their stay is. So we, as the hospitality industry, want to make sure, as the tourism industry, we want to make sure that the guest experience is not lost, but we also want the guests to feel confident. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel secure, and we want them to feel that, we care for them. We care for our employees, and we care for the staff. So a lot of the enhanced measures, as I said, there will be new measures, especially around social distancing. Capacities are going to reduce. Restaurants capacity is going to reduce. Conferencing capacity is going to reduce. Healthcare and gyms, the capacity is going to reduce. But a lot of the measures will be to enhance the already existing very high standards in hotels.
So how is this likely to impact your rack rate?
Well, Bill, for me, I think we need to come together as an industry and think this through very, very carefully, because it's not really going to be a price thing. Of course, there are travelers who will be looking for affordable travel, and we need to be alive to that. This pandemic is going to hurt a lot of people financially. People are going to, change their priorities. Many people are going to have the willingness to travel, the willingness to go to restaurants, but they may not have the means. So, it's very important that, we don't rush into undercutting, dumping rates, because, it's easy to drop rates, but it's difficult to raise them when the time is right. But we definitely will have to come in to the market with affordable packages, with exciting packages targeting families, targeting couples, targeting friend groups. So really the focus has to be on the experience and making sure that the experience is captured a lot more than the pricing. But having said that, we have to look at it in its totality. Hospitality, hotels need to look at their pricing, airlines will need to look at their pricing, parks will need to look at their pricing. But really, let's focus on value. Let's create experiences. Let's create things that people remember. We don't want people to remember, oh, I stayed somewhere for a cheap price. We want them to say, wow, my end-to-end experience was absolutely wonderful, and I'm going to keep traveling around the country if that is indeed what I can experience in Kenya.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, great. But one thing that I think has become very clear is the resilience of Kenyans and the ability of Kenyans to be creative and innovative. And this may perhaps be one of the angles you use maybe to manage your guest amenities. Do you have something in mind to look at Kenyan products? I mean, because clearly, pushed to the walls, Kenyan can be very creative. And this creativity, you can, is there opportunity to bring more of that into your hotels, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, Bill, definitely this COVID-related lockdowns and restrictions have brought out the very best in Kenyans. And this is very commendable, and it really shows that Kenyans are very creative, are very savvy, and will not give up easily. And I think that's fantastic. But many hotel companies in Kenya, particularly the indigenous Kenyan ones like Sarova, we already embraced, buy Kenya, build Kenya. To support local industry and to build our nation. And I think that's very, very important. I read a quote the other day that, the government is there to lead the country, but business and private sector are there to build it. And we definitely, as a Kenyan company, want to be very much a part of that. Many hospitalities, as I said, many hospitality companies work We're big customers of agriculture, we're big customers of manufacturing, for example. Beyond purchasing of perishables and consumables locally, hotels are theming the interior designs of guest rooms, of restaurants, of guest areas around Kenyan culture and heritage. So sourcing locally is key to achieving this, especially around artwork, fabrics, curtain fittings. Hotels are taking action to decrease the environmental footprint and increase the sustainability of their offerings. So you mentioned hotel amenities, and many hotels are now looking for bath amenities locally that are made without preservatives, without artificial ingredients, and that are packaged in recyclable containers. So definitely, there is huge opportunity to support the local industry and to build it, and in so doing, and I can tell you, Sarova and many, many other companies are very much a part of this, not just during COVID. We were a part of it before COVID, and we will continue to be a part of it after.
That's great. Yeah, we also look forward to seeing that, as consumers. A lot of people may not know that you're the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Board, and congratulations on your reassignment last year. Where does Kenya position itself? How, let's say, in comparison to tourism in other parts of the continent, where are we as Kenya as a destination?
Bill, Kenya, or the tourism in Kenya has had a great run, from 2016, and up to 2019. Domestic travel numbers continue to grow. Regional visitor numbers continue to grow. International visitor numbers have continued to grow. We saw this in the statistics announced by our cabinet secretary for 2019. We saw it for 2018. We had a very strong forecast for 2020, but alas, COVID got in the way. But Kenya continues to be ranked in the top 10 must-visit destinations in Africa. Products such as Diani Beach, Masai Mara, Nairobi, the city of Nairobi, have won accolades world over in numerous awards. The World Travel Awards. I think Kenya has won numerous awards. But Bill, post-COVID, business can't continue to be as usual. It cannot be business as usual. Cannot be business as normal. Beach and safari will continue to be our flagship products, but they will have to be reimagined and repackaged. We will have to bring out more strongly other attractions in our country. We have so many different attractions around the country: adventure, culture, heritage, conservation, sports, the cities, towns, cuisine, etc. So we'll need to bring these out, package them, and really start, guiding more travel to these areas, so that we can support the economies of these areas. Because remember, the economies of these areas also need support. Tourism, needs to be all-encompassing, and definitely there's work to be done. But I'm glad to say that work is being done, and I'm very confident that once we start to get into the recovery, I'm sure we can rebuild the numbers in terms of travel in our destination.
When is that recovery?
Oh, I don't know. How long is a piece of string, mate?
Well, we hope that it's sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Jimmy, I know that you're very busy, and we did say that we wouldn't keep you for too long. Just one more question, if you'd allow me. You have a marketing background, and you were marketing director for Sarova for many, many years. As we go into this recovery, so to speak, and as restrictions are lessened and the world opens up to travel, we know that there will be some regulations that the Europeans, the Americans, and maybe even Middle East and the Asians impose to protect their country. Do you think that as Kenya, and perhaps even as the continent, we should bring in some regulations that bring some restrictions, or should we be more liberal as we try and get our market share?
I mean, Bill, definitely we must be a lot more liberal. The Africa continent is a huge opportunity for countries that have tourism products. Second to obviously the domestic market, which is a very key market. I think intra-Africa tourism is the way to go, and tapping this market opportunity has been a strategy for many, many African tourism boards, including the Kenya Tourism Board, pre-COVID. It's continued to be a key growth opportunity market for the sector. And though, of all the 54 countries that are in Africa, not all of them have a well and clearly defined tourism product. Let's start with the ones that do. So we have to encourage Africans to, travel a lot more in our continent and see what beautiful things we have in our continent, whether it's around culture, heritage, whether it's around different histories, whether it's around the different cities and towns, whether it's around different natural attractions. We've got beautiful beaches in Africa, wildlife parks, we've got, Mount Kenya, Mount Kilimanjaro, we've got great forests, which, lend themselves for adventure. But having said that, Bill, we still have challenges that need to be addressed, both by governments and by travel and tourism stakeholders. Unlike in developed continents where intracontinental travel is easier and a lot more affordable due to factors like good transportation infrastructure and networks, whether it's air, road, rail, or water transport, limited, if any, cross-border restrictions, a wider mix of accommodation types and pricing. Unfortunately, in Africa, this is a challenge. There's poor ground transportation connectivity, air transport costs are high, it's very expensive to fly within Africa, and also visa regimes are also not very favorable. So I think this has led to very limited movement of Africans within the continent. So whereas promoting intra-Africa tourism is great for driving sustainability in the sector and also reducing our over-dependency on long-haul source markets, the current challenges need to be addressed, within the continent by the stakeholders. But having said that, Bill, we'll continue to invest in the market in Africa, both as individual properties or groups like Sarova, and definitely the Kenya Tourism Board will continue to invest in the African market.
Yeah. Well, there's so much optimism, I believe, in the hospitality industry. And Boma's International Hospitality College is in the business of producing professionals to, we train young people and bring them into the marketplace as those who have good competencies and who can adapt well into the industry. Should we be optimistic in our current situation?
Absolutely, Bill. And I think hospitality and training institutions are very, very important. Despite the setback that's been occasioned by this pandemic, the industry has been on a growth curve. We've seen several international brands enter the market. We've seen others, expand their investments. We've seen hotels that have been here, expanding their investment through renovations. And so therefore, there'll continue to be career opportunities in the industry. Millennials, we all know, are huge consumers of hospitality offerings. They travel a lot in search of new things, new destinations, new experiences. They want new dining experiences. They want new adventure. They want, they're very key on sustainability. So, we definitely need a workforce that understands this market, knows how to communicate to this market. And that workforce is the millennials themselves. So there is a huge opportunity. We need to understand the changing trends, the new market segments. We need to understand these a lot better and be a lot more customer-centric in our marketing activations and service delivery. So absolutely, we must continue to be optimistic about the future. There is no other choice.
Okay, thank you very much. Jimmy, we have taken more time than we asked of you. Thank you very much for making time to be with us this afternoon. Yeah. We look forward, if you would allow, to call on you again in the very near future. These episodes are going to carry on for some time, and we're going to continue to engage across the board, professionals and industry stakeholders like yourself. So thank you very much. I wish you and Sarova the very, very best, even as you initiate recovery programs. We look forward to serve you even as Boma's International Hospitality College with some of our students.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thanks for giving me that opportunity. And I'm happy to be a part of this webinar whenever you need me. Just please call upon me and I will make the time. Thank you
very much, sir. Thank you very much. Good day, sir.
Good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jimi Kariuki, the Managing Director of Sarova Hotels. We are grateful to have received some rich insight into what is going on and what we can likely expect as the industry goes into a recovery.